Hello everyone, this is Oregon Moto John here, getting ready to go on a ride on the 2021 KTM 890 Adventure R. Just another rainy day. I'll do some gravel roads today as well as a little pavement. We'll talk about this bike, how it handles on and off road. And I'll keep talking about it as compared to the 790 Adventure R as well, just to fill in a few gaps as compared to last time. I'm sorry my video and audio weren't very good in the first video, so I've tried to make some improvements to make it a little more understandable. Thanks for your patience. This is one of the best parts about enduro motorcycles is you can go off-road and you can even speed up. A wet day here in Oregon, pretty much full-on rain again, but that's the way it is this time of year. Pretty vineyard over here on our left. Not a bad view. Yeah, so in the last video, compared and contrasted the 790, but just to recap, 790 versus 890 Adventure R is found the suspension to be a lot better. On the 890, I could soften up the rear shock. The front feels about the same. A little more torque and horsepower, although the 790 was more than adequate, I should say. The clutch is different, but I can't feel that difference in riding it. And brakes. I still feel these brakes are so much better. I don't know. They're just way better to me. Mainly the front one, the rear, I don't feel that much of a difference, but the front feels firmer. The throw is shorter as compared to the 790. But 790 always stopped. It wasn't a problem. I didn't have any failures or anything like that, but I know some people have had some other issues, which, have been there for some as they put more miles on it. I had around 4,000 miles on mine, which was enough to get a good feel for the bike, but probably not enough to, have rotor failures and things like that happen, which, some did report. But for the limited mileage I had, it held up pretty good. But the 890 on gravel, two-track gravel roads, I've had it on some narrower trails, but not really single track. It does really well, feels very stable. The TKC 80s are a nice tire for this to start off with. Just a great bike. I've been very, very pleased with it, and I would sure buy it again. I've got this slip on about a 5. Lets me slip a little, but not so much to where the bike gets away from me. It is easy to pull the front end up there and then just get back on the gas, and suspension felt very compliant and feels good. No complaints at all. We'll do some on-road riding too, and find this bike to be nice when we're on the highway as well. That's why it's my go-to bike now. rainy day, but still very pretty with the leaves changing color. This bike has lots of torque, so you can come out of the corner, get on the gas, and the back end will break loose a little if you give it too much, but it stays nice and controlled and planted. Very good feeling chassis. Very controlled. I mean, this bike, it's so controlled. I mean, honestly, I forget I'm riding on gravel most of the time. You need to get the front end over a pothole or something, you just give it a little blip. You don't need to pull on the clutch or anything, and it'll either loft the tire or skim it across that pothole. It's nice to have enough power to maneuver like that if you need to. And about 3,500 RPM, can pull right out of a corner easily. Little intersection here, looking good. I won't lie though, I'm missing my heated grips and heated seat today that I had on my 790. They're sounds like they're a little bit backlogged on back order for the heated grips, and so I'll just have to wait a little bit on that. I could go aftermarket. I've had really good luck with the Oxford heated grips on a number of bikes over the years and have no complaints on those. If I can't get the OEM KTM grips, that's what I'll put on. But I will say that it is nice that it appears that the new the OEM grips will be activated through the dash, and the controls over here, your left thumb on the handlebars for the new grips, unlike the old 790 where it was kind of a toggle button, which again wasn't a problem. Just having any kind of heated grips and wet, rainy conditions is kind of nice. Friend told me about those years ago, and I remember thought, man, heated grips, do you really need those? But man, once you have them, if you're in a colder climate anyway, it's hard to ever go without them again. So how does this bike do on the pavement? I really like it. I like the upright riding position. I like the power. I have enough wind protection through the gas tank. It gets the wind off my legs, my thighs. With this windshield in the high position with the little extension, it keeps most of the wind off me when it's cold. So in weather like this, I definitely prefer it in the higher position because then I'm not catching as much weather. I also like how the 6th gear is pretty high, so if you're cruising along at 60, 65, 70 plus miles per hour, slip it in 6th gear and the motor will just drop the RPMs a little bit, and feels like it could do that all day, and I'm sure it could. With the 5.3 gallon gas tank, I hope I don't have that wrong. I know it's 5 gallons and some change. I felt like that's really a nice sweet spot for a bike like this. It's very adequate. I don't have to worry about fuel. The fact that it only shows half a tank at the end doesn't bother me because if I'm going to do a significant ride, I always fill up first. And I know I'm good for around 200 230 to 280 miles, depending on throttle use and you know what my speeds are. But anyway, I could see though if you didn't check your fuel, you know, if you're notified that you got a half tank, that can be a little disconcerting, I suppose. So you can see we transitioned from off-road, or excuse me, from on-road to off-road, and that's what I love about these bikes is it doesn't miss a beat. You can just go off-road and keep the exploration going. I always like to hug the inside of these corners because you can't be guaranteed that somebody won't be coming around these in a sideways drift, and that has saved me a number of times. Just hugging this inside corner, and if somebody's coming around in a drift, they won't take you out. So that's a good tip if you're riding gravel roads. There's many times if I'd been in the central lane position, somebody came flying around the corner, it would have been a bad day. So especially if you have a blind corner on a gravel road, I recommend, you know, hugging that inner line a little bit. So if you need to make a correction, you basically hit the ditch, and instead of hitting an oncoming vehicle that's, you know, maybe not being real mindful of their control. Oh, there's a deer. So what I like about riding out here is I see wildlife almost every time. Kind of a blind corner, so hugging the center line. Just a beautiful valley here. Even though it's raining, it's still nice. So this is really loose gravel, and I'm going 50 plus miles per hour on here, and it feels very stable. It feels awesome. I've had bikes where it didn't feel quite as stable on gravel, and this one is rock solid. I love that I can go off-road and feel just as comfortable as being on-road. If anything, the bike comes alive and says, oh yeah, this is what I was designed to do. And it's a compliant ride, the way I've got the rear shock adjusted. The stock settings were fairly good for me on this bike. I just loosened up the preload on the back and changed the dampening a little bit. In fact, I think I'm going to have a Touratech shock to sell because I took it off the 790 thinking I would need it for this bike, and I just don't need it, is the truth. Like I said in my prior video, my only complaint of the 890 is it's too easy to speed. You don't have to rev it out. It just wants to go. Another sample of on-road riding with the 890. Tip it into the corners, very comfortable. Lots of torque to pull out of the corner. Don't have to rev out the motor. Here I'm in 4th gear, which might be a little low, but it'll just pull right out. Another corner, pulling right out. Very nice. Typically some deer through here, so I'm just gonna take my time. It's definitely a wet one today. But I'm out riding, so I can't complain. Just very nice. Very nice, controlled ride. Doesn't seem to get upset if you hit a few bumps in a corner or anything. Just maintains its line. TKC80s, they're a nice tire. Like I was telling you, talking about in the last video, they wear a little fast on the rear. It'd be my only complaint, but I'll review. I have some other tires in mind. Moto's Adventure tire or a Mitas EO7 Plus. I've run both those with good success, so I'll probably keep the TKC80 on the front, and then when the back tire gets a little bald, I'll swap something else out on there. I cannot think of a better way to enjoy some of these back roads than on this motorcycle. Great brakes. Man, I love that front brake. Let's see what got up here. A bit of pavement, back to gravel here in a moment. It's a neat part about an adventure bike. Hit pavement, that's fine. Hit gravel, here we go, back to gravel. Not a problem. In fact, you don't even hardly notice a transition other than sounds a little different. Little uphill section and lots of grunt. Little quick shifter action. The cruise control works really good on this bike too. I did put the rally pack or tech pack or whatever they call it on here, and cruise control and quick shifter, and it works great. Haven't had any problems with it. Of course, with riding like this, you're not really going to use it, but on the highway it's good. It's raining cats and dogs. I have a pin lock visor on my helmet. It does help keep it from fogging, but there's a certain amount of wind that you get that, or excuse me, when it gets to a certain humidity level, you can have the inside or outside of that, windscreen fog up, make it hard to see when it's really raining hard and there's a lot of humidity in the air like today. So sometimes I have to flip my visor up just so I can get a clear view of the highway. It'll be the only downside of riding in the rain. Using like some Klim Gore-Tex pants, which keep me pretty dry. And my jacket is Gore-Tex as well. Keeps me dry, and I have a heated vest that I crank up, but staying warm is important when you're out in this kind of weather. And this loose on the gravel and leaves. It's nice having that traction control because you can just come out of a corner and ease on the throttle. They have really good torque. I mean, I could shift down, but I'm just going to show you that it can run its way out easy. Washboard, everything else going on, and this bike just does great. Sometimes when you're coming out of a corner too, and you don't want to clutch it like uphill and bumping around, sometimes that's when will use the quick shifter. It's like right here, hit a shift, very smooth. Didn't have to go for the clutch, but I'm so used to clutching, most of the time I do use the clutch. One thing I like about this bike is it lets me get in that kind of dirt bike position with the handlebars, and I just can be coming down stuff that's bumpy and, I don't know, slippery and nasty, and I just feel at home. But I guess my first experience with bikes was on dirt bikes, and so I guess that's maybe why I like this so much. I can kind of scoot forward on the end of the seat a little bit I'm going to say near the tank, but there's no tank there. It's just the seat. And I just feel at home. And if you're cruising down the highway, you scoot back a little bit and relax, and that feels good too. But I like that it has this kind of more aggressive riding position, but it's still upright. I left the handlebars in the middle position, but I did put a small handlebar riser on. I think it was maybe 5 millimeters. Wasn't a lot, but just kind of made it feel a little more comfortable for me. Did the same thing when I had my 790. Just got the bars up just a little bit. Well, I hope you're getting something out of these videos. If there's something that you'd like to know, please leave a comment, and I'll do my best to answer it in a timely manner. Oh, it's a little sharper than I thought. And yeah, I'd be happy to help out. Some of you are trying to make a decision whether to buy the 890 or to upgrade from the 790. Might be able to help you with that. And I highly recommend this bike. And the 790, I recommended that as well. Although the only thing that's kind of an expensive upgrade was that rear shock. I mean, maybe other people haven't had that experience, but I know for me, I just didn't. That had to go, just because it was too firm. And see how maneuverable that is. I went around that stick, and it was just like there was no weight there. It was very easy to whip the bike around that. Because of that low center of gravity, I do think it helps out. And brakes, that was need to get some speed off there, and the brakes are nice and firm and responsive. Yeah, like and subscribe. We'll be doing some other things with this bike. Other, probably more two-track trails eventually when I wouldn't mind the weather improving a little bit before I did that. We'll do some service to this bike, oil changes, air filter, things like that. And I'll try to include some stuff with the 690 Enduro R in here too. That's a good bike if the going gets a little tighter onto, like, one track, single track. But still want a good bike on the highway that's tolerable getting there. Yeah, not a bad day at all. I do love how this bike just has so much torque. For me, that makes it a little more usable. People always talk about torque being usable, but I get what they're talking about. Got a little logging action here. Don't want to get in anybody's way working, so we'll just kind of give them a second. Pavement, here we are. Confidence inspiring on the pavement. A little bit of looseness on the front end, but didn't amount to anything. There's a little gravel there. Just a great riding experience. And I do feel that the 890 is just different enough from the 790 that you need to ride it to compare the two. It just yeah, it's easy to say, oh, it's just got a little more power, but it's a little deeper. It just deeper than that. It's the torque, the power, the better brakes, heavier crank. It just it feels significantly different to me. I'm not just saying that because I bought it, that's the way it feels. Don't get me wrong, there's similarities, but there are some subtle differences, but that make it in totality just a bit, you know, just a different bike on the final analysis. Yeah, I'll run through the gears, the quick shifter, so you can see what that feels like. Very smooth, very nice. When I use the quick shifter, I use it where I'm going to be accelerating, got some decent RPMs. I don't know that the quick shifter is really made just when you're putting around. I like to clutch when I'm doing that. I really think that's how it's designed. But, I mean, you could talk to somebody smarter than me that could, right, would be the authority on that. That's the way it kind of seems that these bikes like to, you know, be driving them if you're going to use the quick shifter, not just be kind of puttering around. This is one of the best parts about these bikes is when you come up to a gravel road on pavement, turn off, and you can just keep going like nothing to it. The fun just keeps going. I can't think of a better way to explore. Such a stable platform. Even when it's gravelly. This is fresh grade here, and this bike handles it just fine. Intersection here. I like this little lip. A lot of deep chuckles there, and didn't even hardly feel them. That one's a little deeper. So I was talking about going around corners on the inside if you're taking like a right-hand turn, but you know, on something like this, it's a blind corner. You definitely want to stay towards the outer edge to see around it. So like here's a pothole. Just give it a little gas, and the torque will get that front end to skim right over. But honestly, the suspension is so good. If your front end drops in them, it's not. I haven't ever had it be a big deal. You can stand up. I feel like I'm in a pretty good position even standing. Adventure bikes are hard to beat. And the KTM 890 Adventure R puts itself right in the middle, which is a really good place to be, in my opinion. You can do a lot of things off-road and be comfortable, and do lots of on-road and still be okay. So like that, the front end comes up, and I was at like around 4,000 RPM or a little lower. I think I was around 3,800, and it just has enough grunt where it could. A little bump in the road and a little assistance from the bars, that front end was up. It's great. All right, thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe. More content to come.